The Battle of Ankara in 1402 has been a long-term goal of mine to wargame it, and I've been working on painting the miniatures over the last year and a half, and I've made significant progress, which if you watch other videos on my channel, I've shown the miniatures I painted for it. And this is, of course, the battle between Timur, or Tamerlane as he's also known, and Sultan Bayezid I of the Ottoman Empire, where in the historical battle, Bayezid is defeated and taken captive by Timur, where he dies. But I wanted to walk through some of the historical sources and how we can try to use that to make a game scenario with this battle. And I'd like to take a look first at, in the picture here, this is Timur, and this is a manuscript of the Zafarname of an author named Yazdi. This is one of the main accounts, and originally in Persian. It's translated into Chagatai Turkic later of Timur's life. But I wanted to look at the description of the battle in this text. This is a translation into English of one of the early Ottoman chronicles, the Bodleian Library manuscript Marsh 313 by Dmitry Kostritsis, who also wrote a book about kind of the battle, not so much about the military aspects of the battle, but the battle and its consequences for the Ottoman Sultanate at that time and the ensuing civil war. But that's a story for another time. But I thought I would go through the narrative, and we could talk through how I could use this to make a war game scenario, because there's this account in particular has some interesting details. So the Sultan of Islam does battle with Timur. It has been transmitted through works of history that when the Padishah of Islam conquered Erzincan following the pleas and prostrations of Tahartan, he confirmed him again in his post as Bey of Erzincan, but brought his wife and children to Bursa and plundered his household. For that reason, Tahartan was greatly aggrieved. Although on the surface he declared his allegiance, in secret he was hostile. So when Timur's army arrived in the region, he went to him and complained of oppression. Timur already harbored hostility toward the Padishah, which led him to ruin Sivas and make it his aim to campaign against Rum, which of course means the Ottomans in this case. Tahartan became a further pretext, so he gathered that endless army and set out in the direction of Rum. When the news of this reached the Padishah of Islam's noble ears, he immediately dispatched letters in every direction, gathering the armies of Anatolia and Rumelia. They were joined by 30,000 armed infidels from Wallachia, the land of Laz, and Bosnia, all places subject to the Padishah of Islam. He set out from Bursa, accompanied by his 5 sons, leading an army perfectly arrayed against the enemy. They took the Ankara road and headed towards Timur. As for Timur, after inspecting his army at Sivas and preparing it fully for battle, he camped in a place named Chubuk near Ankara, occupying the side with a water supply. Meanwhile, on our side, the Padishah of Islam advanced toward the enemy with an endless army that included 80,000 Tatars. So I'll pause here, and we do have some interesting details in this account that could help write a scenario. So Timur controls a water supply, so that could be an objective or a victory point for either side to hold the water supply. And also, in terms of building up the army, the Ottoman army was somewhat heterogeneous, because we have Wallachians, we have people from Laz, who I believe are Georgian, but I could be wrong about that. But anyway, non-Ottoman, Turkish-speaking people, and Bosnia, so the Balkans. So we have a kind of mix of different types of troops in the Ottoman army, and certainly there were Serbian knights also that fought in this battle with Yildirim Bayezid, and I'm planning to, of course, include them in my Ottoman troops for this project. Then Ali Pasha, Koç Minnet Bey, and Mustafa Bey from within the army of Islam climbed to a high place and looked out over Timur's army. What did they see? A boundless sea beyond description, churning and boiling away. When they witnessed the situation, they knew that the army of Rum stood no chance of resistance, so they returned and reported to the Padishah of Islam, counseling him as follows: "Let us divide up the army and send it into the hills. By ambushing Timur's army from all sides and attacking from both front and rear, we may be able to attain some sort of victory." But Hoca Firuz Pasha prevented this, saying, "We must march into battle immediately." And Kastritsa says a note here that Hoca Firuz Pasha was Bayezid's chief eunuch, according to the Greek courtier and historian Dukas. Hearing those words, the Padishah of Islam became overconfident. So on the morning of the 13th day of Muharrem in the year 805 of the Hijrah, so it would be 21st of August, 1402, drums and kettle drums were sounded. They marched against Timur, and battle was joined. So here's another decision that the Ottoman commander could make, where do you do the, frankly, smarter deployment to, split Timur's army and, deploy in the hills, versus what Firuz Pasha says, we're just going to go in immediately. So I think that would be an interesting kind of surprise role for the Ottoman player, that, they get like a surprise deployment, and, maybe roll off on that, or, as the GM, I would roll off on that. So that's an interesting other point of decision to implement into the game. And that's why I wanted to share this account, and I'll continue. There's a little bit more, because this is has some more details about like the actual military aspects of the battle, whereas the Turkish sources, this is a Turkish source, but the sources that I have that I've translated, so this would be the historian named Neshri, and then another one named Ashik Pashazadeh, don't quite go into this level of detail. But continuing on, when Timur witnessed the situation, he said to his army, "Charge all at once." They rushed forward like the Red Sea, and there was a sultanic battle that defies description. So that doesn't really help us. He's going to describe it anyway. On our side, the first assault was made by the tribute-paying infidels. They fought fiercely, but in the end, the Tatar forces with the Padishah of Islam betrayed him and went and submitted to Timur. So this is something I've thought about with this battle for a while, to implement morale checks like on the first turn to see how much of the Ottoman army deserts. That also might be a surprise for people that don't know anything about the battle, where, the Ottomans arrive with all these, they call them Tatars, but Turkomans, basically, like Anatolian nomadic Turkomans, probably, and they desert him and go over to the Timurid side, so he loses a bunch of troops, and that might make an interesting problem for the Ottoman player to have to deal with, depending on how many leave. maybe making that a morale check, or maybe just, all of the Tatar units leave no matter what. I don't know. One may be more interesting than the other. Continuing on with our source, when the army of Islam witnessed what had happened to one of its sections, the remaining fighters were routed and chose to take flight. Then Coach Minet Bey came and said to the Padishah, "Change your appearance and flee in some direction in order to save your skin. I will buy you some time by taking your place here." So the Padishah made a show of zeal and kicked his horse forward. As he was alternating between flight and combat, by celestial predestination, the Padishah's horse stumbled, and he fell off. As he was trying to mount again, the Tatar army rushed there. Although the beys present fought hard, in the end the Padishah was taken prisoner. Minet Bey, Mustafa Bey, Hoja Firuz Pasha, and many other beys were also scattered. Thus, the army of Islam was completely routed and scattered. The late Padishah of Islam ruled for 14 years. He was captured on the 13th day of Muharram in the year of 805, the Hijrah, the 3rd of August, 1402. Since his enthronement on the throne of felicitous fortune, he had conquered and added to his well-protected domains territory from all around, equal to 20 sanjaks. Sanjak is like a province, basically. The deceased had 6 sons. One was Ertugrul, who had died during his own lifetime. At the battle with him were Emir Suleiman, Sultan Mehmed, Musa Chelebi, Isa Chelebi, and Mustafa Chelebi. The aforementioned Mustafa Chelebi disappeared in the battle, while Musa Chelebi was captured with his father, and Emir Suleiman was delivered from that incident and went into Rumelia, taking possession of and making his throne in Edirne. Isa Chelebi was in the region of Bursa, while Sultan Mehmed went to Tokat, taking control of the province of Rum. God willing, what happened to them will be recounted in detail. So our chronicler ends on kind of a cliffhanger, but this is kind of setting up the sort of Game of Thrones, if you will, that happens after this battle. But in terms of what we're discussing today, we have quite a lot of details in this account that would be helpful for a scenario. We also have a lot of kind of randomness of, what happened, that our chronicler is kind of telling us, like, what happened really was a fluke. Like, they may have been able to beat Timur, actually. It's unclear, we don't know what may have happened, but, there's a lot of... This account, I think, is quite conducive to helping develop this scenario, this battle, into a war game scenario, because we have a lot of random chance and, where, Bayezid could have, survived maybe, or there could have been a different plan of deployment. So that's quite interesting. And then there's also, this is not, these are by no means the only 2 sources, but this is another one I actually started to look at recently. This is the biography or history of Timur that's written by Ahmed ibn Arabshah. And this is thankfully translated. You can find this easily on Internet Archive. I wanted to just talk through this one a little bit. Ibn Arabshah is kind of interesting because he is sort of a hostile biographer of Timur. And he also has a pretty lengthy account about what happens when Timur invades Anatolia. And Ibn Arabshah gives quite similar background to the anonymous chronicler, but he discusses what Timur does to entice the Turkomans to join him. There's a long letter. I won't read the whole thing, but there's one line that's interesting. Basically, what Timur says is he wants to give the Turkoman power back, as, the Ottomans were kind of upstarts, trying to exert themselves in Anatolia. And, in the Islamic world, it's one thing for the Ottomans to go and fight kind of the remnants of the Byzantines at this stage, and kind of the Balkan Christian kingdoms, but fighting other Muslims, you're not really supposed to do that. But anyway, Timur writes to the Turkomans, or probably his secretary anyway. But now outwardly you will be with Ibn Uthman, that's Bayezid, inwardly with us, until at our invasion you separate and slide over to our army. So Timur's letter here that's recounted in Ibn Arab-Shah indicates that this was sort of settled even before the battle, which is interesting. And Ibn Arab-Shah gives another kind of interesting point about the betrayal of the Tatars. So, but when the armies had approached each other and those wild beasts were mutually raging, the plains and deserts being filled with them, and when the left wing engaged with the right and the right with the left, the Tatars withdrew from the army of Ibn Uthman and joined Timur's army according to the arrangement and plan. And they were the strength of the army and a numerous part among the host of Ibn Uthman, so many that the multitude of the Tatars was about a third of that great and warlike army. Nay, it is said that the whole host of the Tatars nearly equaled the army of Timur. So this is another kind of morale check that could be interesting. So compared to the earlier account, this gives more information that it was happened during the actual battle. And so that would be, I think, kind of a nice secret in a convention game like this, to have that where it looks like you have all these troops, but actually they're going to desert you on turn 1 or turn 2. Now, another detail that Ibn Arab-Shah mentions a couple times is the fact that everyone was very thirsty because of the heat, and it was the summer. So I think that might be something to implement somehow, of not having enough water, or there being some kind of penalty as the turns add up of the troops getting dehydrated. I think that would be something to add. You don't really see that in war games that often, like supply or kind of exhaustion. So I think that might be interesting, maybe like by turn 3 or something, or halfway through the battle, if I have like a 4-hour convention slot, 2 hours in, everyone takes like a maybe -1 to all rolls to reflect that they're thirsty, their animals are thirsty. So that's interesting. Now, other than these two sources, there are others. Like I've said, there's the Ottoman scholars or chroniclers that are not translated. I have translated those. I just don't have my notes handy for making this video, but these are two of the sources. So I think ultimately there's a lot of good information in these that can actually be used for a wargaming scenario, which is not always the case. As I often discuss on the channel, if you're like interested in wargaming or military history, the sources we have, depending on what period of time we're talking about, don't really explain a lot, or they don't really answer the question that you're asking of them, kind of thing. But these do, and I think I can see now some interesting features to add to this. Now, in terms of rules for this scenario, I may just go with Hail Caesar, which is not like my favorite set of rules, like a lot of Warlord stuff, but it is a good system for convention play. Basically, it's most people know it. It's easy to run, and for something like this, I think it would be pretty easy to implement. But I'll keep looking at rules. There's also Impetus, which I've played Baroque That's a little more granular, but that could also be a good option. But rules I can figure out. That's not that difficult. But I think based on the sources I discussed today, we have some interesting features for a convention game. And as far as the painting part of the project, I have more Timurids and Turkoman and Tatars that I bought from Khorasan Miniatures several months ago that I need to paint. I do need to add elements to my Ottoman army to fit this period, so more kind of Balkan knights that would have been in Ottoman service, that sort of thing, as also some Wallachians, people to represent Wallachians, etc. But I think this will be a good project. Timur also apparently had elephants. They're not mentioned in this account, but I might add them. It's always fun to have war elephants, so I'll include them as well. But I think this will be a good convention game, and I'm actually making progress. I've been talking about doing this for like years now, but I'm actually finally making progress, and I think I have better command of the sources now to actually make a accurate kind of scenario that's also fun to play, and that's always striking a balance. It's always important, I think, is trying to take these battles and making them fun to play. So I hope you found this video informative. Thanks for watching. I do have a small a donation, a Ko-Fi page. You can donate a small amount if you like the videos I do and the research I present, but no pressure. It's just a tip jar if you want to leave something. So thank you for watching, and hope you enjoy it.